social condition. And in ERM studies, we do not have enough power to actually address this issue, but when I looked at each gender group separately, they didn't seem to be different. Although statistically, it was meaningless to test that based on the power issue. And also when I when I looked at this anger, social status, and health outcomes, whether these relationships are moderated by gender, there was no gender significant three-way interaction. Yeah. Ronnie?
So I'm curious as to, given that you're also interested in regulation, whether in Asian culture, obviously people have personal goals, even though they're now possibly interdependently defined.
Right.
Is your assumption that there is some kind of regulation that minimizes the automatic frustration one might have? Or is there, my own hypothesis, there's not anger but shame to be experienced in when personal goals are basically blocked because of the interdependence. So I'm trying to figure out whether you think there's the lack of any anger effects among, let's say, low status, is that there's another emotion that's experienced in response to it, or that frustration is not leading to any kind of emotional responding, or what do you think people do there when goals are blocked?
Yeah, so I think you just pointed out very important, two issues. The first one is that whether people experience same emotional responses to the blocked personal goal. That's an empirical question. And it's a very important question, whether do Asians experience frustration or shame or even guilt, because social evaluation is automatically just all set and they just fail in some tasks. So this is an empirical question. I don't know. So I'm very interested in examining this issue.
You're interested in other emotions.
Yeah, right.
Well, because one thing that's fascinating to me is, given the lower indices of biological risk which was a major finding there. If it is shame, it suggests that shame may not be related to biological, which would be serious, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's related to mental health. And although we see those as similar, but I mean, there are so many interesting directions to go. So,
yeah. Just going back to what you just said earlier, so too, about why frustration does not lead to aggression or anger in Japanese context is also another very important issue that is unresolved in this study. But very interestingly, when I examined, so lower status is related to frustration in both cultures.
Okay.
Being lower involves a lot of constraints, and it made people frustrated regardless of culture. It's universal. But very interestingly, frustration does not lead to anger expression in Japan.
Right. So I'm trying to figure out whether, it's an empirical question for later, some other time, whether there's some kind of regulation, self-regulation that is very effective, or whether it because of the cultural definition and the interdependence, the frustration leads to a completely different sort of emotion. In other words, whether you just modulate the frustration that leads to no emotion, or it leads to a different emotion. And that's an empirical question.
Yeah, it's definitely an empirical question. And also, I do think that frustration, just experience of frustration or anger or whatever negative events will have negative biological health risk across culture. But what is unique about this research is just not experience negative emotion. This is expression of it. So to address this point more clearly, so we examine other indices of anger, such as anger suppression or anger control and trait anger or anger experience. Never is correlated, moderated by culture. So it's just anger expression. Yeah. So
related to that, how people regulate these frustrations would be different. So maybe Americans get frustrated eat like junk food, but maybe the Japanese don't. And then so then you get the biological consequence. So that's
yeah. Right.
Really excellent.
Okay.
Do you study or have thoughts about the effect of anger expression from others in different cultures, and what inferences we make about people who are angry? Which, based on your talk, I now have this hypothesis that Americans may view angry people as being low status, not very well controlled towards, whereas in Japan, we ran those studies that seen anger maybe a cue of high status. I
Right.
just wondered, is there any data regarding that, or?
So I think it's a really great point, and there are already some studies. So, for example, my ERN just. So there's already study in that. So anger is related to the appraisal of high status, even in the United States. So it's not that anger is always like perceived as like low status thing, because there are these two associations available even in the United States. But there has been no research to examine whether this link between anger and high status, perceptions of high status, is modulated by culture. There's no research. And I think it's an interesting avenue to future direction. Yeah. Jeff?
So, I apologize for a technical question, but
No.
I'm curious enough to ask. When you showed the relationship of your various measures of interdependence, it looks like, and you seem to be suggesting the way you plotted it, that eliminates the cultural difference. And so you have the Asians and the Europeans on the same line, one regression line, for everyone, right? And the only difference between the Asian participants were higher in the interdependence factor. So do you think that's an accurate characterization, and have you evaluated that statistically? Have you compared that model to the model with two regression lines?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I have slide to speak that issue. So, first of all, in the Facebook framing study, when we examine population in each cultural group, it tends to be weaker, maybe because of the small sample size, but they are already in the right direction, except for this group, American group. So we posit that this is based on post-hoc speculation, but the rate of interdependence of this particular cultural group was smaller compared to other, like, when we compare this range, standard deviation and their mean with the means of other European Americans who participate in other studies. So this is just speculation, but we think that this may have contributed to this small variance within this particular cultural group, make it hard to observe any sizable relationship between face priming and interdependence. And when we also examine this link in the self-centric effects and interdependence, so they are all in the right directions, but the relationship tends to be weak, again, likely to because of the small sample size. And we tested whether this intensity of the relationship is statistically different across the two cultures, but none of them are significantly modulated by culture. So it's not statistically different from across the cultures. Although the sample size is so weak, so what to make out of it is another issue, but yeah. Any other questions?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Once you get your stuff, take you up to the other room. You can eat your lunch.
Yeah.
And the students will come in and do.
And actually, I had one question. So, did you say my updated CV when I did? I wasn't sure. Yeah.
I get an updated one.
So,
There
just
were a bunch
wanted-
of new
Yeah.
in press. And,
Thank you.
Did I come wrong? Did I say 5? And you had more or?
So you said 16, and actually my up-to-date CV is 2.
Oh,
So-
okay. Well, maybe I I didn't count chapters.
Ah,
That
you
was
didn't?
just your
Ah,
journal.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, just your part.
Yeah. Maybe that
So,
contributed.
yeah.
Sorry to
Right,
be
right, I just-
anxious
I
about this.
just did it consistently across the group, but I didn't count chapters or
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
entries or anything like that. Just threw them in this.
Okay. Yeah. All
Just
right.
to be easier. Even though those chapters are important, I know.
Yeah, but it's a different.
But a lot of work.
Thank you so much for
Oh,
borrowing.
yes,
Yeah.
of course. I'm glad I had it, and I'm glad it worked.
Yeah.
I would have figured something. This is your report as well.
Okay, thank you.
There, well, put that right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
So
Nice
really
to meet
good to meet you.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to meet with you later in the afternoon.
right, right.
So,
Yeah, I look forward
yeah.
to it. And Wendy said, say hello too.
That's good. Yes. It's been a long time since I chatted with her, but yeah, it's fantastic. I really am looking forward to talking more about,
Me too.
about things. So, and I apologize on behalf of the weather. It's crazy. Today was the worst day coming in. I thought, and all of us who were late, I think it's really not like us to be a pretty prompt group. And the campus was really, took me over twice as long to come in.
Yeah, I understand. I did my PhD in Michigan, so I know how weather.
Yeah, it's just, but this is even funny for us. Even though this wasn't the worst storm ever, I think there was something about, I don't know what, but.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll see you this afternoon.
Okay, I look forward to it.
Yep.
See you later.
Bye.